All right, so Dylan, apparently, if you're not paying every single person on your worship and tech team, you are actually running a corrupt business disguised as the church. Did you know that?
Mm-hmm. I did.
Okay, no, check this out, dude. Seriously. Jeff and I released a podcast a couple weeks ago. A couple weeks ago, right? It was a couple weeks ago? Yeah, a couple weeks ago we released a podcast. And it was about how to build a volunteer culture in the church. Surprise, surprise, we got obliterated. Okay, so check out some of these comments. One of these guys said, volunteering is just a way to manipulate free labor. Another guy, if churches actually cared, they'd pay people what they're worth. This isn't ministry, this is exploitation. These guys are grifters, stay away.
Oh, nice.
It was wild. Like they went through all sorts of personal jabs, whatever. And normally we don't really read comments. But it was really interesting and sad at some points because it started to kind of open up the gates of where worship and tech ministry has kind of gone a bit. And there was so much more that came after that episode. But really today, I want to talk with you. The title of this episode, I think we're titling it, Is Worship Ministry Just a Business Now? Okay. So we both have experience in the church, serving the church on staff, volunteering. Just as a why for this episode, all you listeners, and those of you watching on YouTube, really just want to address the topic a bit further, not to really defend ourselves. We don't need to defend ourselves. Jeff isn't even here, right? So I really just want to discuss this idea of church as an industry. And disclaimer, it might get a little bit soapboxy, so if you're not into that, just move on to something else. But Dylan, this idea of church as an industry, is it fair to say that it has become an industry?
Are you asking me?
Yeah. What do you think?
The term industry is used when there's money involved. And okay. Churches have and need resources. We all know that. That's the obvious. That's the answer. Specifically in the worship production space, I was thinking about this too. Society is teaching us that everything is about the dollar. Everything. Nothing is free. And where we have taken that inside the volunteering of the church space is, well, if nothing is free outside of these four walls, why do I continue on doing things for free? Right? So there's all kinds of things that we could dive in when it comes to that. But personally, I don't know if I would say inside of the church industry, and use that term, but I could see why people would do that because the mind may be wrapped around the dollar. Everything costs today. Time is money, if you've ever heard the term. And so if you actually believe in that, me giving up my time, why am I not getting paid for that? Yeah. Now, I don't know if we're ready to dive into this quite yet, but I have thoughts all around that.
The idea of volunteering doesn't make a whole lot of sense to a non-believer. So we have to call that out first, right? We get out on there on the internet and start talking about certain things in the church that to a non-believer do sound pretty freaking crazy, if I'm being honest. Mm-hmm. They're like, and that's where a lot of, I think, confusion comes from out there. They're like, yeah, this is why I don't want to be involved in the church. I got my time abused. Like, I'm an audio engineer and this is how I make a living and the church wants me to do this for free. How dare they? I understand their sensitivities there, but we just at the ground floor, this is a conversation for believers. Not trying to be exclusive, but we're talking about how to build volunteer culture in the church. If you don't know the Lord, just honestly, this channel is not for you.
Yeah, it's probably half of the production teams out there. But
So,
am I allowed to say that?
Yeah, we can say that. It's fine. I mean, I would just say, look, we've taken this blended model in the church of treating specifically the tech team, honestly, like janitorial staff.
Yeah.
We're like, if they know the Lord, it's nice. It's definitely a bonus, but ultimately we want it to sound good.
Yeah.
And that's where, for those of you listening, that's where a lot of our followers in the early days of MxU came from. People who were just like, I'm an audio guy and I want to figure out which way to turn the knob. And the church pays me to come every now and then and mix. And so that became part of our tribe. And then we've started as of late talking pretty boldly about how to build volunteer culture. And wow, how I knew there'd be some pushback, but it's been pretty interesting. Again, we start talking about, people are leaving comments like, if the church wants results, you have to pay for results. If you want excellence, then you have to pay for it. That is not true.
Yeah.
Like, that's just insane.
Yeah.
I've been a part of churches that are 90% volunteer ran across worship and tech ministry, and there's the best experiences you would find in America. Mm-hmm. I understand we only see what we see, though, as well.
Yeah, and I want to make it very clear from my own lips that I am not against, I don't think you are either, paying positions inside of the church. But the reality is that we are talking about less than 1% of churches in the world that do that.
Yeah.
But because we all live on social media, we see all the trendy cool churches posting all the trendy cool videos, and our minds automatically jump to, well, if I had that many staff members, I could do that as well. But I just have these old weaselly, measly volunteers. I don't know what they're doing. And so we will never be as cool and trendy as them. That is what is molding and shaping our brains when it comes to reality. The reality of it is that 99% of churches in the world are only volunteer ran.
Yeah.
But because we watch the cool guys, we go, man, if I had that many staff members, and it's just an assumption, if you were to sit down with any of these leaders inside the church, and go, hey, how many volunteers do you have versus staff? I think you would be, now there are churches out there that have a ton of staff. You'll see an Instagram post that says we're hiring, and it's like 15 church production guys. And I'm like, where do you even have the resources to do that with? That's amazing that you can do that. But that is not reality for churches in America. It just isn't. You're talking at that pace, it's less than 1% of churches that can do that, right? You're talking 0.0001%, right? So we've got to continue on remembering, and maybe I'm jumping in it too quickly, but we got to continue on remembering why we said yes all those years ago, why we said yes, we would serve the church. I was reminded by a leader, did you say yes to serve a church for a promotion and a raise, or did you say yes to serve a church because you just love Jesus and you wanted to see people come, to know him? Mm-hmm. And obviously that's a challenging thought, but for me it was like, yeah, of course. I didn't even know money was a thing when I said yes 20 plus years ago to serve a church. So, I don't know. It is it's a fine line for sure, but I don't disagree with paying people on the teams. I don't, but it's just rare. That's not a common thing. And the comments are just silly. I'd love to sit down with people that have this thought. And I have friends who have the same thoughts. I know some of these guys that are making these comments. But I don't know.
Yeah.
It's one of those things.
I totally agree with you. I was on church staff for a long time. I don't regret that. I don't think that I was in the wrong for being on being on church staff. I know plenty of people who are on church. I know a lot of people who are on church staff. That's a lot of our community. Yeah. And I don't think that they're in the wrong. We have this, sometimes it comes down to language. We're talking about contractor culture versus volunteer culture.
Is it church staff that's making these comments, though, or is it volunteers who are burned out because they have poor leadership?
I think it's a little bit of everything.
Is it? Okay.
I think it's a little bit of everything. I think it's a combination of, I've heard from a lot of church leaders that are like, wait, so should I not be on staff? It's like, no, that's not what we're saying. We have some contractors who this is how they provide for their family, and the church is a massive opportunity for them to be able to provide for their family as a contractor. And there's volunteers who are like, I feel like I should be getting paid. I'm putting so much effort into this. So it's a mixed bag. And so it's hard to address all of these things. We're not going to, it's kind of petty to address all of them. But I want to make it really clear, it is not wrong or sinful to pay people, right? And I've been in environments where there are a lot of people paid, where it's been healthy and unhealthy. So it's easy to make these things black and white.
Yeah,
it's
totally.
not. But instead of like arguing all those little caveats, well, this, then that's okay. But if this, then that's not okay. How about we just go straight to volunteering is a beautiful thing. And we are called to service. I volunteer in my church. Does MxU charge churches for its services? Yes. We're a software platform. We sell them a software platform. My church that I attend, do I get paid by them? No, that's my choice. That doesn't mean that I'm holier than somebody else or better. That's my choice because I love serving. I think there's something really valuable to it. There are many people on our team who serve their local church, and we love doing that. We're very passionate about that. We wake up every day thinking about volunteers in the church. How do we serve them better? And more importantly, because we can't do it on our own, how do we partner with the leaders in the local church to serve their volunteers better? Train them, equip them, right? But that is hard. And so what we are going to advocate for every single day of the week is don't take the shortcut by going and hiring the guy who frankly isn't a part of your church, who is a great mixer and is just kind of easy to push in the back. You don't know their kids' names. You don't really know anything about them, but they get the job done for you. Starts to sound a whole lot like the guy that we're contracting to clean toilets, which, by the way, there's nothing wrong with cleaning toilets. And I think that,
toilets have to be clean.
no, but I'm just, again, I think it's a very important position.
Yeah.
What we're doing in tech.
Yeah.
Very important positions. And we shouldn't just treat them like this commodity.
A common thing I hear too is, of course we all have this excellence factor that we want to drive towards. And excellence is such a loose term, and it's such an opinionated thing. You excellence for you looks different for excellence for me, And so we all make that up in our heads of what that truly is. So we want to go get the guy or girl who is the professional, and we want to go to them and say, hey, we realize that you travel 10 or 15 days a month as a freelancer working for some of the best production companies in the world. What would it be like for you to come mix 2 times a month at my church? As a freelancer, I'm saying this as a freelancer. When I was a freelancer, the first thing I would think maybe when that question would come to me, which it never has because I don't mix, but it would be like, well, yeah, sure. What's the day rate? Because that's the way you're programmed, because you're using your skills to get paid. And there's literally nothing wrong with that. So if I can get your day rate and I can pay you that. And so what I've heard, to wrap my thought up, what I've heard is, hey, this is what I do for a living. I don't want to come do that at church, which I get.
Yeah, go serve in youth ministry. Go do something different.
But if you're a believer and you're invested inside of your church, an act of service is not something that our pastor made up. It is actually in the Bible. Mm-hmm. And if you were to open it up and read it, we see it in Matthew, we see it in 1 Peter, we see these things. It's like, it doesn't say what gifts you have, go use them and send them an invoice in 15 days. And so, but I get it. It's like, I'm helping a church right now, and it's one of those things they're paying me pennies, let's just be honest. And it's not about the money for me. If it was, it would be a no. But I do feel at times torn in the sense of, man, I do this for a living. Like, I just want to come to church and sit and watch. So it's a tension that all humans are going to manage. It's not like Dylan and Spencer sitting on a podcast shaming people
we got it figured out.
Yeah, that want to be paid. Like, we're not saying that's a shameful thought.
Yeah.
But I'm going to keep saying it. We have to go back to the day of salvation and the day that we were called to serve the church, whether it be through staff, volunteering, or whatever. I'm not saying be poor for the rest of your life, but we have to remind ourselves why we said yes to begin with. Mm-hmm. And then what I've seen with me personally, I'm speaking from, I watch all these cool churches do cool things, and I automatically jump to that side of things and go, man, if I had money, if I had staff, we could do that. We could have a mix like that. We could have lights like that. We could have camera shots like that. If we just had, and it's just not the reality. We've got to go back to the day of why we were called to say to ministry. When we said I do, and we said yes, I'm in. We have to remind ourselves of that. Unfortunately, leadership is so poor in the church today. I'm just gonna go for it because you got
the professional pot stirrer.
You got me routed up. Leadership is so poor in the church today that, especially in the production and worship space, and anybody that has beef with this, please, you can text me and we'll talk about it. 865-466-0894. There's my personal cell phone number. It's so poor today that we have gotten so lazy with people development that it's just easier to pay people.
Yeah.
Because you don't care about developing people. You just don't. You would rather focus on the pedals on your pedal board. You would rather focus on the knobs on your switcher or the faders on your audio console. That's what you would rather focus on because that's what you think ministry is.
Yeah.
And you are being lied to by your leadership. You are being lied to by Satan when you watch those social media videos. You got me fired up. This is your fault.
Well, hold on a second. Before you continue, you know this so well because you've done this, right?
It's me.
Exactly.
I'm telling you, it's me. I'm guilty of all these things. This is self-conviction that I'm just sharing from my heart.
Yeah.
Like, it's just me.
Yeah.
And I did it for years. And the reality of it is nobody leaves our buildings going, that D&B rig sounds amazing. I mean, we're in my space. So I'm a producer for a live production company. In my space, no clients are coming in the room going, I wish we had an L Acoustics rig and not a D&B rig. They're not saying that.
Yeah.
It's us that cares about that because we're tech guys. We're production guys. We want the best. I get it. But so in the church space, Jimmy, who brings his wife, and they're going through a nasty separation, and the only thing Jimmy wants is his marriage restored. But yet the only thing we care about is making the room sound good and look good. Sure, distraction-free worship, I get it. Make the service good. But man, if Jimmy's lingering around front of house and going, that's pretty cool setup, and it's like, I got somebody else in front of house wanting to talk to me, we've missed ministry. Because what happens, and we've seen it time and time again, when Jimmy gets involved and I have a volunteer culture that I actually care about developing people, and I see Jimmy standing at front of house and I shoulder tap Jimmy and I say, what do you see that you like here? You're showing interest. Man, I used to mix at a bar 25 years ago and I'd love to get back into serving the church, not knowing that Jimmy's going through a nasty divorce right now or a separation with his wife, and fully believing as the volunteer leader that I believe God can restore that relationship. Let's get you involved in our church today, and it might be through serving. I'm not saying throw Jimbo at front of house the next Sunday, but what I'm saying is if we can get him inside of a volunteer development culture, we get him around spiritual leaders, we get him involved into a small group or a group, we get him involved into the actual discipleship of what a church should be, and then slowly over time through his development process, we get him trained and developed. Now he's mixing. What you see is generations changing through the yes of serving the church.
Yep.
Now, if you want to pay Jimmy a year from now, pay him. I don't care. But get him inside of a process. If you don't have a volunteer process, you're missing what ministry is. You just are. I don't care about these comments anymore. You've got me fired up.
Well, here's the thing,
Caleb.
Everybody, it's so funny because people are like, oh, you got to hire a professional. Make sure you hire a professional. Go hire Jeff Sandstrom. Go hire Lee Fields. Go hire this person. These
are
like
incredible
fathers of production.
They're incredible.
Incredible mixers.
Yes.
We could go on and on about all the incredible people out there doing amazing work.
Yes.
Guess where those people came from?
Yes.
The church.
Yes.
Have they all come from the church? No. But man, some of the best out there have come from the church at a very early age. And were they getting paid at a very early age? No.
Yeah.
Are they worth paying now? Yes.
Yeah.
But you have to start somewhere. And I don't think any of those people, I don't want to speak for all of them, but there's a few people I know, I don't think they would ever say, like, yeah, I regret volunteering in the church early on in my life. I just don't think, I've never heard anybody say that. Right? And so people like to make assumptions because you can come at this from many different angles. We put a video out on YouTube or on Instagram a couple weeks ago, maybe last week, I can't remember. It was kind of like a sarcastic parody, but we were trying to represent what we see 85% of the time in the church. We was it Jim? We called him Jim. Okay, so we had Jim come in. Jim is a full-time plumber.
Is there something about Jim and Jimmy and Jimbo?
No, I just said Jim,
name.
and yes,
it's
we're
a
here.
good name.
We were like, hey, Jim. We brought Nate in. We decided to have Nate be Jim. Nate's wearing a full-on plumber costume and everything, and it's like, meet Jim. Jim, he drums in his spare time. It's just a hobby. He's a full-time plumber. He doesn't really know much about church worship culture. Drummed in his high school band, whatever. He actually has a ton of potential, but like, do we really want to train this guy? Like, he's not really our vibe. He's like in his late 40s, and we like to have a lot of youth on stage, and he seems kind of busy, and we don't really want to train him. So let's just go contract our buddy who doesn't attend to our church instead. I think we called him Stix, Stix maybe. Anyway, so
I like that.
All that to say, we see that all the time. And then guess what? Jim's like, I'm not cool enough to serve on the worship team. This might not be the place for me. I really would love to serve though. I feel like God's gifted me in this way, but nah, that guy, we don't want to spend the time and invest in him. We see that in the church all the time, literally all the time. That's why we wake up every day and do what we do at MxU, because we're so passionate about seeing that change. We've seen that firsthand. We've heard stories. It's not a problem that is getting better. So that's the angle we're coming from. It's not about villainizing, oh, stop paying people, or it's not worth paying. It's just God has given you so many amazing people in your church congregation who want to serve. So invest in them and allow them to serve. Mm-hmm. If they serve so much that they're spending hours upon hours upon hours in your church, and it starts to feel like, man, this person, we need to pay them for their time. Pay them for their time. Great. What a beautiful story.
Can I add something to that?
Yeah.
Or be a better leader and be more invested in your people and be so invested in your people that you see that there's potential burnout coming down for Jim because you are making the ask.
Yeah.
And be a leader and say, hey, Jim, we love you being around. I remember I served at a church and our volunteer culture actually was really, really good. And we would provide food because we did a Saturday night service and a Sunday. And we're asking volunteers to come in. And if you want a way to pay your volunteers without paying them, just feed them.
It's true.
But we would we didn't pay anybody, but we would feed our volunteers. Well, the culture was so good that volunteer world that we'd have people just show up to hang out and eat. And it was like, guys, we love you, but we don't have the catering needs for you because you're not on planning center, and that's how we pull all of our numbers for how many people we're feeding. And B, you have a wife at home and kids at home that want you at home. We appreciate you wanting to be here, but we have to actually be a leader and say, hey, go home. You're not serving this weekend. You have to have those conversations, because what's going to happen naturally is that person, that volunteer is going to be so invested that they start telling themselves, I'm here every day and nobody appreciates me. I'm here every day, and during the week, a Tuesday night rehearsal, and Saturday night service, and Wednesday night students, and Monday night celebrate recovery, and Tuesday night development processes, and Saturday night services, and Sunday morning services, and Sunday night services. Well, the leader has to see that and go, okay, and we're going to protect your time, and then you have to have a conversation with yourself and your leader and saying, hey, I just need to back off a little bit. There's nothing wrong with that. Yeah. There's nothing wrong with protecting your time and your schedule. It shouldn't always just lead to, if I'm going to do all this work, I need to get paid.
Yeah.
And that's where it can naturally lend itself because of time is money, and that's our society. That's what we're trained and developed every day. Every time you turn on something, you hear something about a tariff or or inflation, or you hear it's all about money. Everything's about money. Yeah. And there's something on my heart that I just want to say. I think people experience burnout because they start following the leader as their Jesus. Mm-hmm. And they're going to fail you every time. That person's going to fail you every time. They're not perfect. They're going to send out an email that you're not going to like. They're going to ask you to do something you don't like. They're going to send out a mass text message because they're frustrated and saying, guys, we got to get better. And because you follow that person more than you follow anything else, and that person disappoints you, you start experiencing burnout quicker, which is naturally going to lead to, well, I need to be paid if I'm here. And then you're going to leave that church. You're going to go to another church. You're going to start your cycle all over again. You're going to be the new guy that walks in the back. You're going to be like, I'm involved. I do all this and that. And then you're going to find yourself in 6 months being way too invested. You're going to go to that leader and say, I need to get paid. You're going to get upset. You're going to leave that church. You're going to go to your third church. You're going to start the cycle all over again. It's because you're missing what you said I do to at the day of salvation when you got called in and serving your church. You've missed that. You are now chasing something that you're never going to catch.
Yeah. Oh man, my blood pressure. Do you feel like it's just getting a little hot in here?
Whose fault is this? I mean, it's the content's fault for
sure. Okay, we're gonna wrap it up because we could talk about this a lot. Maybe we'll talk about it more.
I did give my personal cell phone number in this, right?
Yeah, you did 100%. Here's the thing. Us at MxU, it's an interesting season we're finding ourselves in right now. A lot of, just so you know, those of you watching, listening, everything you hear from MxU comes from people for the most part, right? And us at MxU, me, Dylan, Jeff, Caleb, there's people you hear from at MxU. We all have conviction, and we're all growing, and we're all working through our experiences, where we are today, what we wish maybe we could have done differently. But like, things are shifting in some of the messaging of what we're communicating here, even on this podcast. And it's been really interesting in this season because people are starting to realize, oh man, for so many years, these guys were teaching churches how to get their LED wall brightness perfect and how to get the PA tuned perfectly. All these things, which is not wrong. Like we still do that, and those things are important to be able to create meaningful experiences in the church that are not distracting. But we're going higher level. If we don't get some of these things we're talking about right, then all those things just, like you said earlier, nobody cares. It don't matter.
It's not ministry.
Yeah. And so it's been really fascinating as we've been kind of walking on this journey in this season of starting to call some of these things out. And I've learned a lot in that process by just who gets a little offended by it.
And you and I have had some in-depth discussions off a microphone about where churches are headed, and we have not agreed on everything. So it's not like Dylan and Spencer are on here like,
no. We should record some of those too.
I don't know if we should do that.
But at the end of the day, all I'm trying to communicate is we want to get back to people in worship and tech ministry because we see this trend in the church. And part of it is we're too close to it. Social media, you just see too much. We talk to churches every day. And so sometimes, I'm going to be honest, it gets kind of tiring. Some of the questions we're getting. And it's like, you're still not paying attention to your people. How do you invest in your people, the people in your church? Nobody's going to see that work that you're doing. It's probably not Instagram worthy. It's probably not something you're going to get any recognition for. But it's what you signed up for being in ministry. So, yeah, for those of you listening, we just want to be as transparent as possible. That's why we're talking about these things, because we think they're more important. And if you'd rather us have conversation about mixing in soundscape or stereo or this PA or that PA or this, we talk about those things as well. But frankly, we're kind of getting sick and tired of talking about those things and this thing get done so poorly.
You just blend it. Just show any effort towards people. I think you're doing better. Just blend it.
And look, there are people who are doing it well, and that's why we get up and do this every day and believe that there can be change, because we see the change. We see it and we're pumped about it. But also some of the junk that we're faced with on a daily basis in line of this topic, as church become a business, is it the industry of church? It just gets gross after a while. And frankly, the world is tired of it too. And so we want to be part of the change in worship and tech ministry, because I actually think that worship and tech ministry is leading some of that sickness in the church.
Absolutely.
So if you're offended, sorry. You got Dylan's phone number. Hit him up. Thanks for joining us on the podcast. And we'll do this again. When I say again, I mean maybe we just need to do more Dylan Spencer time and maybe have some more disagreement on some stuff.
Yeah.
I don't like this to be always just a pump each other up thing either.
Yeah. Well, I think even some comments you've made, I 100% disagree with just now.
Oh, come on. I was going to say, let's go another 30 minutes.
No, I'm kidding.
All right. We'll see you next time on the MxU podcast.